speak to you today. When I sent this presentation through to Motibi about a month ago, a lot of things have changed in our industry. So my presentation is slightly different to what is written in the program. It says advantages to broadcasters, or the advantages of DTT to broadcasters. I just want to change that slightly and discuss with you some of the challenges that we're currently facing within our market in order for us to launch DTT. So a little bit about Namibia. It's a very big country with very little people. So if you go look at the paying population, there's about 1.26 million economically active people within Namibia, and that translates to about 500,000 households. And if you look at the television households, it's about just under 300,000. So it's a very, very small market that we're dealing with. We have the national broadcaster, where I come from, and then where I work for. And then we have a free-to-air broadcaster, commercial free-to-air broadcaster called One Africa. And then we also have Mnet, the pay TV broadcaster, who has already launched DTT in Windhoek, in the capital. DSTV is also there, as well as a community broadcaster called TBN. The national television coverage is 66%, and we have about 58 transmitters to get us to that coverage. I'm going to skip this slide. Okay, let me just stop here. We have one television channel, okay, that provides entertainment, education, and news to the public, as well as 10 African language radio stations that cover the 10 different languages within Namibia. So what this shows you is that viewership actually in Namibia is declining. Maybe people are spending more time outside. I don't know, maybe there's nothing to watch on TV. So hopefully once we've launched DTT, people would start getting back into the habit of watching television. So the brief really is for us to switch off or to migrate our viewers from analog broadcasting to digital by June 2015, which is the International Telecommunications Union switch-off date. SADC as a region has set a date of the end of this year, but I think the only two countries that I think will meet that date is Tanzania and Mauritius. The rest of the countries in SADC won't meet that date. But all of us are trying to get to scrambling to get to meet the June 2015 date. Locally, our objective is to firstly increase the coverage that we already have. Okay, so to go from 66% coverage to 80% coverage. And then obviously also to switch off the analog transmitter network and migrate those viewers over to DTT. And then I'm glad to report that the plan is that we will meet the June 2015 deadline so within 18 months from now we will have 66% coverage, and at that point we can start switching off the analog transmitters. So this just gives you sort of an outline of who is present in the market. And what it actually entails to launch a DTT, a broadcast platform. The new thing for all broadcasters is this portion here in the middle, called encoding and multiplexing. And this whole portion here, I think in South Africa the approach is for the retail market to sort out DTT decoders, sourcing decoders into the market. We've taken a different approach. We've taken the approach that government is funding everything, and we heavily subsidizing the product so that we can get them out there to the viewers as quickly as possible. And that's possible because of the sheer size of the market. It's very small, and it is possible for us to actually do that. So NBC is the main executor of the project. The project is fully funded by government. We've appointed through an open tender process Huawei, who's the systems integrator for the NBC. We've ordered 100,000 decoders. That is just to kickstart the process, and we've already got 20,000 decoders in the store waiting for distribution into the shops. The idea is to carry One Africa and TBN on the public service multiplex. I'll explain to you the difficulty with that a little bit later. And then in December, now I asked the guys there at the back for me to manipulate the presentation. I'm not sure if that's possible. What I wanted to show you, if you click on this for me, please, on the blue. Okay, further down in the presentation, there's a nice picture showing, us launching the project DTT last year December, with our minister actually coming and switching on the transmitter for us. On this slide, this is a bit difficult, but can I ask the operator please to click on this block there for me? Can they hear me? Can you go one back, please?
One back. Okay.
Can you click there?
Face.
Yes, click on the little dot. Okay, so this is the coverage that we will have when we switch on the main transmitter, which will cover the whole of Windhoek. So this is sort of Windhoek and the outlying areas of Windhoek. This transmitter is currently being installed, and hopefully by the end of this week, we'll be able to switch that transmitter on. Can you click, here at the bottom is a little dot, a black dot, just click on that black dot. Okay, can you click on this dot for me, please? Okay, so this is what phase 1's coverage will look like. So I said 18 months, we're trying for 12. We would be able to switch on these 14 transmitters, which will give us 96.4% coverage. Okay, and then we will start the switch off process, going into those towns, speaking to the people, and getting them to go out there into retail to go buy the decoder, in order for us to start switching off those transmitters. The criteria for switch off is that at least 80% of the people in that specific town need to have access to a digital signal. What that means is 80% of 1,000 people, let's say it's 1,000 households in that town, 800 in this case, would have to have a decoder in their home before we can switch off the analog transmitter. That is what the policy currently says. Can you again click here at the bottom, there's a little dot. Okay, thank you very much. Yes? Okay, this is what phase 2's coverage looks like. Can you go back? And then this is what phase, the last phase of our, no, sorry, that's a mistake. Okay, then on that one, no, click on this one. Okay, so that is what 80% coverage will look like in Namibia. Okay, so it's a very vast country. I was asked a question in a conference a while back, why are we going for a multi-frequency network for the technology guys sitting here? It's because for example, here you have coverage, then there's nothing, and then you have coverage again, then there's nothing, and then you have coverage again. So it's virtually impossible to build a large area single frequency network, and it's very complicated. So a decision was made 12, 14 months ago that we will not go the single frequency network route, but we'll stick with MFN. Can you go back? Okay, now I can take over control again. Okay, so the question really, you know, because I'm sounding like a stuck record now already. In last year, in one of the conferences, I said that the intent is to launch in December. We weren't ready for a launch in December, and then we wrote to the ministry and we said, okay, can we then move out the launch to April? April is gone and we still haven't launched. And we sat with the industry 2 weeks ago saying, look here, we want to launch in June, you know. And then the industry became up in arms. And I want to just explain that to you. So what do you need for a launch? And you'll see now why they are concerned about this. Firstly, you need a signal, and I think we've covered that already. You know, the transmitter in Windhoek will be on air by the end of this month. You need a policy to be in place. You know, you can't do anything without a legal framework being in place. The regulator, our regulator is called CRAN. They need to issue licenses to all the broadcasters to enable them to play in the game. We need decoders in retail. Okay, there needs to be some sort of consumer awareness campaign to start telling people what this DTT project is all about and why they need to switch. And then we need a channel lineup. The people need to know what channels are they going to actually watch. And the consumer awareness campaign also needs to know what is it that they need to tell the people, what channels are they going to be. And then obviously, you know, people will have problems, so you need to have some sort of call center in place in order to deal with the questions. Now I want to go very quickly through all of these. This is the network specifications. I'm not going to spend time on that. I'll give you some time to look at it. But that configuration there will give us 13 standard definition channels. So this is sort of a diagrammatic explanation of how we're going to carry One African TBN's electronic program guide information. So they will come through our firewall, and then we'll put their data onto the multiplex. So they are responsible for their own EPG information. So we don't, as the NBC, we don't need to employ people to still type out their EPG data. They will push the data onto the multiplex themselves. Okay, so what is currently in the policy guideline? So NBC is deemed to be the national carrier, and this is where the problem is coming in. We have been given one multiplex. MultiChoice will own the other multiplex, and then MultiChoice's current license will also be grandfathered. Okay. There's also provision in the policy for self-provisioning. So if I'm a broadcaster and I don't want to go with the NBC, I can go and build my own network. The regulators already drafted the license conditions. They have the licenses with them. They just need to issue it to us, but they can't issue it because there's no policy that has been issued yet. Interference studies for spectrum have been done. Then the big thing is that NBC is not regulated by CRAN. The minister needs to enact a section 92 in our Communications Act to allow for this. And in our discussions with him as well as with the regulator, he has said that can't happen right now. So it poses some sort of problem for us because technically CRAN can't issue us with a signal distribution license. Okay, we already have our broadcast license, that's not an issue, and we can self-provide. So we can go build our own network, and we can go on, chug along, without any regulation. The issue comes in that if we want to carry other broadcasters, we won't be able to do that. So this has put a little bit of a spanner in the works, and we're not sure how this is going to be resolved. And it's something that we are going to speak to the regulator about, as well as the ministry. And then the policy guidelines have not been issued yet. And the reason why we went for policy guidelines a year ago is because of the pressure of wanting to launch. So the ministry advised that, okay, let's put a guideline in place instead of a fully fledged policy, and a year later it still hasn't happened. So, these things are starting to push our deadlines out. The decoder, initially we wanted to distribute the decoders for free to the citizens. The Ministry of Finance said, no, you can't do that, you need to somehow recover some of that costs. So we've developed a retail price, and that needs to go to Cabinet for approval. So that, we've just done the Cabinet submission. We thought it was done already because we've given them information to the Ministry. They came back and said, no, you guys were supposed to do it. So then for pensioners and war veterans, and those that are getting a grant, they will get 50% of that retail price. Unfortunately, I can't tell you what the price is. It hasn't been approved yet. The criteria is really for you to have a valid TV license. If you have a valid TV license, you can go get your decoder. Decoder distribution, we've just appointed a company called MobiPay that will distribute the decoders into retail on our behalf. We're also looking at using the post office to distribute to, because they've also got a very wide footprint nationally. We will select a few outlets in Windhoek to launch from. We're trying to keep it small so that if there are any problems, we can actually contain and resolve those problems quickly. The technical team's also working on integrating the IT systems so that at retail, if someone wants to pay for their TV license, retail will be able to accept a payment and not having to come back to the NBC to make the payment and then go back to retail. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for the viewer to get their decoder, to purchase their decoder. Consumer awareness, we are ready. The plan is there. The only two things that the Consumer Awareness Committee is waiting for is the price of the decoder and the channel lineup. Once they've got those two things, they'll be able to finalize everything. This is the little logo that we will take to market. Get digital. Okay, get excited, get ready, get digital. Get up and go to the shop and go buy your decoder. So that is sort of the punchlines that we will throw to consumers. The channels, we will launch with NBC, One Africa TBN, and our 10 radio stations will also be on the platform. Now there's question marks behind here. Our plan was to launch with a news channel, NBC2, and an entertainment channel, NBC3. What has happened is the free-to-air broadcaster has come and said, but how will those channels be approved? And now the question comes, NBC is not regulated by CRAN. What do we do now? So this is one of the sticky points that we're currently facing. The other sticky point is that because we have been deemed to be the signal distributor, that is also an issue. Firstly, we are a competitor in the market, and we need to distribute our competitors' signals as well. So there's a bit of an uncomfortable uneasiness within the industry at the moment. And what One Africa has said is, look, we want to know what we're going to pay first before we can launch. We've appointed a consultant to look at that. The issue with that is the way our books, our finances have been, or the way it is at the moment. It's very difficult to actually go into the books, rip it apart and say, okay, electricity, this was the electricity for the transmitter sites, this is the amount of maintenance that was done on transmitter sites. And so that's still going to take a little bit of time, which we explained to them, and then they said, okay, they'll wait. Which means we can't launch then in June. You know, and that's really the issue. So what we've done is we've actually pulled together a little, myself and the CFO, we got together, we pulled something together, and hopefully this interim tariff then, if they agree to it, you know, then at least we can, that roadblock will then be out of the way, and we'll be able to then move forward and agree on a launch date. Call center, not an issue. MobiPay will do the call center for us, and the month of June will be used to train up the call center agents on how to deal with TTT related issues. So I come back to the first slide. What is needed in order to launch? That box we can tick. I was looking for a tick, but I couldn't find one, so I had to use robots. So emitting a DTT signal, we will be ready. The policy guidelines, it's up to the ministry. You know, they need to take it to cabinet for approval. They said it will happen in June. We don't know, because a year ago they said, no, in April last year we would have had it already. So I'm making that orange because we're not sure what will happen with the ministry. And obviously this one is orange because CRAN can't issue us with licenses if we don't have a policy in place. And the other reason why, okay, this one is orange because of the tariff issue. Okay, so we've got a number that we can share with One Africa. We've got a number that we want to share with One Africa, and hopefully, you know, next week when we sit with them, they will agree to it, and then that roadblock will be out of the way. And then the only two things then that we need to get in place, or actually the only thing that we need to get in place is the policy, and then we can, as an industry, decide on a launch date, and then we'll be able to launch. And that's it from our side. Thank you very much.